I wanted to mention that this panel has been made possible thanks to the City of Montreal and the CRUM, le Centre de la Recherche Urbaine de Montréal, all in collaboration with V1 Studio. So my name is Mike Raymond, and I am the programs lead at V1 Studio. V1 is a non-for-profit that focuses on scientific entrepreneurship. More specifically, we support in bringing innovations from the lab to the market. We do this with two key programs, the first one being called the Quebec Scientific Entrepreneurship Program, which is essentially Entrepreneurship 101 for researchers that are currently doing their graduate studies anywhere in Quebec. The second is called the Scientific Venture Program, which is Canada's very first postdoc that has the purpose of commercializing and launching your own scientific startup. You may be asking yourselves, what is scientific entrepreneurship? We define it as a way of building startups using the scientific method to innovate. This has had growing importance in the last 10 years with many of our world's major problems needing complex solutions. So we have two amazing examples coming to discuss with us today. Two researchers who are currently in the process of commercializing their own products. So if we can invite Brandon and Ali to the stage. So Brandon and Ali, thanks so much for being here. And perhaps if we can just start by sharing with the audience a brief overview of who you are and a little bit more about your academic journey.
Of course. Thank you so much, Mike. My name is Alejandra. I prefer Ali. And I was originally born in Mexico. I first came to Canada to do an exchange during my undergrad program. I was studying chemistry, and when I came here, I found this incredible team of researchers, which got me very excited to come back for my grad studies. And I did my PhD. I very recently graduated in August, and now I'm part, thank you, I'm part of the scientific venture program. So I'm doing the postdoctoral program on the very first cohort, and it's been very exciting.
And congrats, Ali, on completing your PhD. It's a great achievement. Can you tell us just briefly what problem do you want to solve in this world, and what is your solution?
Absolutely. We are trying to make self-expression instantaneous, and the way we're trying to achieve this is by combining cosmetics with technology.
And can you give us an example of a product that you're currently working on?
Yes, the first product we're working on is e-polish, and these are press-on nails that will allow any individual to change their color or the design on their nails just by bringing it into close proximity to their phone and choosing from any available design there. So very exciting.
Sounds super exciting and very futuristic as well. So thanks so much for sharing. And Brandon, can you do the same thing? Maybe give us a little bit of background overview and more on your academic journey to start, and then about your business, the problem you want to solve, and the solution.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, guys. And honestly, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Mike, for the introduction. So for the audience, my name is Brandon. I'm currently a synthetic biologist master's candidate at Concordia University, where we're using synthetic biology tools and other molecular techniques to innovate the next generations of techniques for any industry that we could, provide a sustainable solution. I started my journey in biology because of my brother, and I conducted my bachelor's in cell and molecular biology. And from there, I really got to know about biomarkers, cancer analytics, and I was exposed to a plethora of techniques and instruments that really piqued my interest. So with that being said, I hopped onto a genetic engineering project, which I'm currently doing. And from that, we spun off with some technologies that are applicable in the aquaculture industry. So from there, my brother and I founded GC Lipid Technologies, which him and I are currently running. And just to talk about the company side, Mike, what we do at GC Lipid Technologies is we are trying to innovate the next alternative feed for aquacultures. Because currently we are actually expecting a permanent depletion in forage fish by 2037. So that's not too far, guys. We got to keep that in mind. And the unsteady supply chain behind that is the forage fish that we're fishing right now is being used to feed fishes in aquaculture. So you could see a paradox. There's sustainability issues right off the bat. And what we want to do is use microalgae, which is a small plant-like cell you find in the oceans, and engineer that, use our technology, use our expertise in synthetic biology to upregulate the nutrients in that microalgae and substitute it for the fish so we could save them. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background.
Yeah, it's very impressive, Brandon. And for anyone in the audience who's seen the film Seaspiracy on Netflix, you can definitely relate to what Brandon is trying to solve. So very
Absolutely.
interesting. So we have, for the next 20 minutes, we're going to be discussing a little bit more of that transition about how you went from really more like the research side to the business side. And then we're going to follow with a 5-minute Q&A. So let's get right into it. And what I want to first discuss about is, to me, it seems like the academic research world and the entrepreneurial world are both very different than one another and kind of like separated. Can you share with me perhaps what are the key differences or even similarities, if any, between those two worlds?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that's very similar in the sense that whenever you're doing research in a lab, you first need to make a hypothesis. Then you need to think of different experiments that you will be running in order to validate or prove something different to what you proposed originally, and then try to communicate those results and move from there. And in entrepreneurship, what I found is that in a sense, it's very similar because you are trying to solve a problem in a way that's new, and you need to think about all these different aspects and how you will be solving it. So for me, I think that a PhD actually prepared me very well to take on this opportunity, and I'm happy to continue with it. So I think personally for me, it would be more similar than not.
Very interesting. What do you think of that, Brandon? Any thoughts?
I absolutely agree with you, Ali. But just to contrast a little bit, I think, well, for one, it's similar because we're addressing, a particular audience, right? But in the academic side, you're dealing with a small scientific population. But then when you want to go into the entrepreneurial world, you're no longer dealing with just scientists, right? You want to communicate these words better in a much more feasible way or more comprehensible way. But also the speed to which we go with our degrees in academics and the speed we want to launch our company. In the entrepreneurial world, trust me, you want to be the first one launching that technology. So those are definitely differences that I've been seeing so far.
So what would you say, Brandon? Are they more different or more similar in your opinion?
It's a good balance between both, honestly, and it's very early in my entrepreneurial journey, so I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, and I was just going to follow up. I think the pace is definitely different because in science, you always do something like stepwise, like one, and then based on that, you move to step two. And in entrepreneurship, I found it's more like we're going to do step A, and that involves like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is hard to get used to coming from such a scientific background.
So, Ali, how were you able to overcome this main difference, I guess, about going with multiple steps at the same time in the entrepreneurial world? Do you have any strategies, any ways to cope with that?
Mentorship. I think it was very important to be surrounded in an ecosystem that teaches you how to change your mentality from something that you are taught to do in science, so going stepwise, to being comfortable with that fast pace and knowing that you have to do this all at the same time, just as Brandon said, to be the first one and make sure you succeed.
No, you're definitely right. The mentorships out there are incredible. There are people who already done it, right? So they could definitely help us with that part.
Very interesting. So, Brandon, why did you decide to go from research to business or to being a founder yourself?
Definitely. Well, starting in research, you're exposed to a much higher level of, academic knowledge, right? But not everybody could understand it. You have the opportunity to leverage this knowledge and apply it to real-world problems. When I saw that the tools that I'm working on in the lab could be scaled and used in industries where we could provide sustainable solutions, it really piqued my interest because, the aquaculture industry was definitely the first one we wanted to hit. And this is more on a personal note. My parents come from islands, so you understand that the fishes, the aquaculture economy is really thriving that place. A lot of families depend on it. So if we're expecting permanent depletions and we have the techniques, the tools, the technologies whatsoever, why not apply it? Why not use it? Because it's there, right?
You seem so inspired when you speak about it. It's amazing. And Ali, do you have can you share with us why you decided to go from really leave academia because you went far into that academic journey and to start your own business? Why would you do that?
Yeah, so once I was doing my PhD, I found that I was spending so much time trying to find solutions to very specific problems. And this were solutions that I was very passionate about, and the research really excited me. And for me, it was almost sad to see that it was going to be stopped at a certain level. It was just going to reach, as Brandon mentioned, just the scientific community. And these are articles that are hard to read. They're hard to impact as many people as I would have liked. And for me, entrepreneurship was really that bridge of making sure that the knowledge didn't stay in the lab, that it could actually benefit and impact society. So that really made me push myself and get outside of the lab and try something new.
Super interesting. And related to that, is there a specific event or something very concrete that motivated you or that made you decide, like, yes, I'm going to do this and start my own business?
I guess the moment I decided, like, it's now was when I started talking to my family and I was telling them about different options I could explore, and knowing that I wanted to reach many people, and coming from a family that's very entrepreneurial, with my father and my sister having done this before, I realized that this was an opportunity to do it. And actually around that same time, I found QCSC, so it really showed me that there was an opportunity with my science background to move forward, to look for opportunities, and not even to look for opportunities, but to create them and to make sure that I could achieve my goals.
Very nice. And Brandon, do you have a specific event that you want to share with us that made you decide officially, let's do it?
It's a very good question, Mike. I wouldn't say a specific event, but like along the way, there was a compilation of things, compilation of feelings that just told me that, you know, you're learning something that could be applicable to the society, positive impacts, sustainable issues are happening now. You know, these are all things that were indicators that maybe I should really just shift my attention, you know, while I have the chance, while I have the opportunity. Because Ali, I believe we were having a discussion the other day. It's like, if it's not me, then who, right? That's really how it felt.
Very nice. And I'm curious to know, so what was your biggest challenges in being able to like make that transition, I guess, to officially get started? Perhaps starting with Ali here.
I guess the biggest challenge for me personally was overcoming fear, because there was this heaviness for me that came from, okay, I've spent so many years studying and specializing in one topic, and now I want to do something completely different, something that I felt I hadn't prepared for. And really just knowing that I had a team over there was like support for people around me. So I already mentioned like the QCSC program really helped me and allowed me to be in the right ecosystem.
And do you have any other strategies maybe to share with us about how to overcome such fear, maybe from a more internal level or anything?
I think that thinking about the people you can help really makes a difference, because it changes your perception. Instead of being focused on yourself and focusing on your own fear, you can actually think about how others will benefit if you succeed, if you are able to put something out there for them. And changing that mindset really allows you to walk through something that looks very scary or very challenging at the beginning. And that's always something that thrives me. So whenever something becomes too challenging, I think, okay, who is not benefiting from my own fear stopping me? And that allows me to continue.
That's amazing advice and a great mindset. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brandon, do you have anything to add in regards to what Ali said here?
Oh, definitely. Ali, you're right. Fear is something to overcome. And if you want a tip, go in front of the mirror, have that conversation 100 times, morning, day, anytime. It'll help, trust me. But for challenges that are to overcome, you know, being in that entrepreneurial world and coming from a researcher background, It's wearing the different hats. And you know, even if you're the leading expert in your technology, you now have to build a business plan. You now have to run a company structure. You have to be able to run all of these things simultaneously. And it's challenging, Ali, I'm telling you. And I'm sure we're both living here right now, but that's probably one of the biggest things I'm facing right now.
And Brandon, how are you going about like overcoming this challenge and learning all about that business side and building a business plan and everything?
Well, there's a mentor of mine that I spoke to a couple of months ago, and he said, your network is your net worth. Go talk to those other mentors because they've done it before. Go talk to a business developer. Go talk to somebody who's in sustainable issues, who's out there in the wilderness figuring it out, you know? These are people who have been living through it for years, and they'll give you the tips, the expertise required, you know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And having the right support system and the right mentors around you will probably really help in reducing that fear and really going to the next level.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Can you share with us maybe any future projects or ideas that you have with your business? Where is it going?
Sure, yeah, no, definitely. Well, for us, where we're at with the company, it's a lot about validating the like alternative feed, right? So we're looking at pilot studies, we're looking at small fish scale pilot studies, and we hope ideally to be collaborating with the NRC, the National Research Council, in the near future to conduct these studies and you know, authenticate our product. And by then, if everything goes well, you know, we're gonna go ahead and contact aquacultures on the east and west coast of Canada and take it from there.
And do you have just do you have a specific like timeline a little bit for this process?
Definitely. Well, for the pilot study that we're going to conduct in the coming months, it's going to take about 8 months to a year. And with compiling that report, getting some more money on board, investments, we're going to contact the NRC hopefully by 2023.
Very good, thank you. Ali, what about you? What's your where is AIM Colors headed in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, that's super exciting, Brandon. It
Thank
sounds
you.
amazing. For us, we're actually starting our first internship in January, or not us, but we are going to have our first intern joining us in January, and we're very excited about that. We're going to be collaborating with academia, which I think it's a wonderful opportunity for entrepreneurs to continue developing and get help in solving very complex problems. And we are continuing the SVP program to make sure we can build the right business model and reach as many people. We're also conducting interviews. So if you're interested in telling me more about your nail care use, please contact me. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. And Ali is going to be it. We're going to stay in the back. So for anyone who wants to come and speak to us after or ask more questions, it will be definitely possible. Very, very interesting. And next question I wanted to know is, do you have any, are there any people that inspired you really to become an entrepreneur, to become your own founder? Brandon?
It's funny enough because the person who inspired me to do this is my co-founder, my brother. He's a very driven and focused individual, one of the most focused individuals I've ever come across in my life. And he's been able to handle so many things, launch his own startups, finish his PhD. He has been a source of inspiration since for as long as I can remember. So he definitely drove me here.
And what does he do for the business, and how do you divide your tasks and decide who does what?
Well, definitely. What my position currently is for more of the executive decisions and leading the company vision and mission. He's much more on the technical side. He's the CSO, the Chief Scientific Officer. He's very heavy on the technology, the road mapping, the instruments involved, and where we see ourselves with the technology in the next coming months.
Very cool. And what about you, Ali? Who's your biggest inspiration?
For me, it's also someone from my family. For me, it's my father. He is a medical doctor in Mexico, and he started with his private practice when I was very young, but soon he realized that there was a really big need for people to have access to medical equipment, especially in rural areas of Mexico. So since I can remember, he has been always trying to improve those conditions, and he's done so by becoming an entrepreneur and being able to balance both his practice with trying to solve these problems and making sure he can reach as many people as he can. And every time I talk to him and he tells me about his projects, it's just so inspiring. And I hear about how much work he has to do, and I think like, okay, this is something doable, and I want to follow those footsteps. So he's definitely my biggest inspiration.
And by being so busy and having so many projects, do you have time to be able to talk about your business? And does he give you advice on how you can, get to the next level?
He is very open to help, and he's always very supportive, which has been fantastic. And every time I ask him something, he always kind of makes it an open-ended question so I can learn on my own, which is sometimes hard, but I can see why he does it. And I really appreciate it because it has allowed me to explore a lot of different pathways, and in a way it has led me to be where I am today.
Very interesting. I was wondering, for both of you, what kind of opportunities do you think that starting a business can bring to you that's like maybe that you wouldn't be able to find in the academic world?
Well, if I could start by saying speaking to people, when you're running a business, you speak to so many different types of characters along the way, whether it's, a top dog of a company, an executive, a CEO, to somebody who's in sales. It's completely different conversations, styles of talking, the wording. I feel like that's made me such a much more diverse person, a much more approachable person, because I was able to speak to all of these people,
So really, so basically, like the networking effect that opens up so many opportunities and possibilities, right?
I think so too, because those people have their own lives, their own opportunities, and keeping in contact, maybe you could build something from that simple conversation.
Ali, do you have anything that you want to add to that, or any additional thoughts on?
I would really just echo what Brandon just said, because it's true. You are sometimes in a very closed community when you are in science, and when you move outside of that, it's not even like, oh, I'll try. You're forced to put yourself out there and to begin talking about subjects that maybe make you nervous. But by doing so, you learn so much just from having different opinions and having different perspectives, which in the end just makes you more well-rounded.
Yeah, you're right. The parts where you talk about the nerves, that's for sure. Keep talking to people. Those nerves will calm down eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And Ali, it's interesting. You just said it's a very closed community, I guess, the academic world. Do you feel like that's changing or evolving now in this day and age? And maybe, Brandon, you can speak to that as well.
I definitely feel it's evolving. I feel very fortunate. I was in a lab where my professor really allowed me to explore and diversify, in the sense that he knew I was getting involved with entrepreneurship and he supported it. And I think that him doing so led to other professors seeing that, okay, there's benefit and there's opportunities and the students are growing in a different way. So I think that right now is the best moment to try entrepreneurship, to take a risk and really see how far you can take your research, how many people you can impact, and just see where you can go from there.
You're right, Ali. Taking the risk is now, because Montreal in itself is such a hub for these ideas, these innovation centers. I feel like it's the time to start exploring that crazy so-called idea you wrote down on your napkin. Give it a shot, because from what I saw starting at Concordia, there's a lot of incubators, there's a lot of like small startup programs, even mentors that are just willing to have a conversation to entertain that idea and really explore whatever it is you were thinking about. So I think it's evolving quite quickly.
That's really interesting. It's very encouraging also to hear from both of you that there's so much support system. We're speaking about the Montreal community mostly right now, but I think across Canada we can see similarities. So I guess our last question for today, coming from me at least, will be, what type of advice would you give to current researchers or people in academia or even scientists who are thinking of perhaps starting their business? Like, what would you tell them?
Don't be afraid. I think that is a very important one. I think sometimes you feel that you're going to be judged or misunderstood by the scientific community, but the truth is that it's such an exciting environment, and you can reach so many people and create so many opportunities for science to leave the lab and really impact society, that it's definitely worth taking that risk. And an easy way to do it is by getting involved with your university, seeing if they have an incubator, looking for opportunities like the ones that QCSC and SVP offer, because that gives you a pathway, gives you mentors, gives you support, and puts you in the right ecosystem to move forward.
Honestly, it's really what you said, Ali. There is a growing community, like we said. If I have to give one piece of advice, is asking the right people, going out there, pushing yourself to network, because before I even started this company or even thought about starting a company, I didn't know where to look. I didn't know what to do. But until I started asking, that's when I got the answers to be like, okay, there's people who are out there who have done it that could help me, Go ahead, because that's how we're going to overcome our fear and how we did it, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Super interesting. So that's it for my questions, but I have a few questions here coming in from the online community. And if also anyone in the audience has anything to ask, please feel free to raise your hand. But we can start here with first question, which is, what are the major barriers for an inventor to get a product to market?
Ooh, that's a really good one, because depending on the industry you're coming from, the first thing that comes to mind is policies and regulations, right? What is the target audience you want to go for? Is it something consumed by humans? Is it something that's going to be a service as well? These are all things that you should be learning at the very beginning, because if you don't do your due diligence now, there's going to be a lot of repercussions and a lot of holdback. And if you get a customer that says no, trust me, a lot of the other customers are going to say no, and it's going to be a bad story from there.
Interesting. Ali, do you have anything that you want to add about what are the barriers really to getting started?
I think in terms of technical barriers, Brandon covered them, but in terms of personal barriers, I think sometimes we doubt a bit on what we're doing, and we're maybe looking for a one-fits-all solution. And really the way to go about it is just to start talking about it, as Brandon said, start asking questions and start mobilizing, because that will create a pathway. It'll kind of like shine a light into the steps you need to take, and it'll become clearer. So that would be my advice. Just make sure you are not being your own self-barrier and you're really pushing forward, because it's worth it.
Very good. And I have a second question here. What are the skills you had to learn to be both a scientist and an entrepreneur? Very interesting.
That's a loaded question, that's for sure.
Many skills, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Many skills to start with. But the scientific part, I believe the academic system is very good with that. So if you're trying to start that entrepreneurial journey, start thinking outside of that mindset. And when I mean start thinking out of that is, what would a person at GMSB be doing or thinking? Somebody who's doing an MBA, how would he think? Somebody who's coming from the marketing department, what do they prioritize in their life, right? Or for their career. That way, you can start understanding the scope of people that are going to be looking at you as an entrepreneur. You're going to understand each and one of them, of their opinion, their perception, because that's the first step you got to start thinking about if you want to launch something well.
Ali, are there any key skills that you think are really important for both worlds that that are comparable?
I would say the one skill that you need is determination for both of them, because you always need to keep trying over and over again and know that that is all learning, and it's not a symptom of anything else other than learning. And for science, it's the same process. Whenever you start a new project, you need to try new experiments, and it doesn't work, and you change one variable and you check the results. And in a sense, that ability to get up over and over again and try over and over again translates to entrepreneurship, because Brandon said, like, sometimes you get a no, but that doesn't mean it's a no forever. It just means, okay, change one more variable, try again, and again, and again.
Yeah, that's amazing. So listen, everyone, there's 30 seconds left. So Ali and Brandon are going to be staying here at the event. They're going to be at around the tables in the back, so please go speak to them, ask them questions. As you can see, you need a lot of determination, and it's not easy to be a self-starter, so any support that you can give by just chatting with them, I think would be great. I want to take a quick moment to just thank you both, Brandon and Ali, for being here at this panel and for sharing your personal experiences and sharing everything that you just said today with the crowd in the audience. I also want to thank Campus Party and Numana and the City of Montreal for making this happen, and all of the other partners that were involved in the organization. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike.